Good evening from Los Angeles. I'm Lawrence O'Donnell. House Democrats today passed an extension of the Bush tax rates for income less than $250,000, which House Minority Leader John Boehner declared, quote, chicken, well, you heard what he called it. And Senate Republicans promised to kill the bill when it arrives in their chamber. The White House applauded the House action in a statement and then added, quote, but because Republicans have made it clear that they won't pass a middle-class extension without also extending tax cuts for the wealthy, the president has asked Director Liu and Secretary Geithner to work with Congress to find a way forward. To which the White House's critics on the left responded, quote, at a moment when they could have celebrated victory, this White House incredibly chose to wave the white flag, signaling to Republicans that they will take any deal, no matter how bad, including borrowing billions to extend tax cuts for the richest Americans. This is a direct betrayal of a core Obama campaign promise and the essence of political malpractice and negotiating incompetence. Huffington Post reporters Sam Stein and Ryan Grimm described Democrats on the Hill as sinking into despair as the White House appears willing to negotiate away their other priorities, leaving them to fight for things like the START treaty. One top Democratic aide complained, quote, the idea that Republicans would give us a vote on their I wish I could say this, effing treaty. I mean, this was Ronald Reagan's treaty. We're just extending it. It's crazy. Joining me now is House Financial Services Committee Chairman Barney Frank. Congressman Frank, this vote today was not as easy a vote for you as people might think. You've got a lot of people in the top tax bracket in your district, in Brookline and Dover and Wellesley. How do you explain to them that their tax rates should go up while everyone else in your district should get a cut?
Frankly, most of them explained to me why they should go up. It's not the case that everybody who is doing well begrudges making a contribution. Many of these are fairly sophisticated people, and they understand that if someone is making $500,000, so $250,000 of that will be subjected to a tax increase from 36% to 39%. That's 3% of $250,000. That an increase of $7,500 in the taxes paid by someone making $500,000 has zero economic effect. So I'm very lucky, frankly, in many of the areas that I represent where people do well. You mentioned the town of Brookline, the city of Newton, the town of Wellesley. They all voted for me, and I think it's just a misconception that the Republicans are trying to peddle that everybody is selfish. Of course, people also understand, look, in Massachusetts, one of the great concerns now, as in other places, is the fate of people whose unemployment is running out, because in this economy with growth being much slower than we like, they haven't been able to find jobs. And what we have are Republicans saying, on the one hand, that they cannot support an increase in unemployment benefits, an extension of unemployment benefits, because it would add too much to the deficit. And we are in, after all, a deficit situation. But when it comes to taxing the wealthy, suddenly those deficit fears disappear. And in fact, giving reduction on that part of income over $250 will cost far more than unemployment benefits. So it shows the hypocrisy of them saying that they're against unemployment benefits because of the deficit. They've also said, well, you can't have a tax increase even on millionaires in the midst of a recession. That's bad economics because it won't slow down what they would spend. But in fact, if you are looking for what's most effective in a recession, it's unemployment compensation. Nothing is a better counter-cyclical fiscal policy. So I understand why Boehner has lost it and is engaging in elementary school swearing. He's very frustrated by what I think is a pretty good exposure of their hypocrisy.
There seems to be frustration within your caucus. Is it true that you're all very depressed at the White House's reaction to your vote today?
To be honest, I didn't hear the reaction. At the time, in the immediate aftermath of the vote today, we were focused on the very sad situation involving our colleague Charlie Rangel. We were in a very solemn debate in which the House conducted itself procedurally in a very good fashion. So I'll be honest with you, Lawrence, we were focused on that Charlie Rangel thing. Yes, I myself hadn't heard the White House reaction until now, and I'm very disappointed in it. I think it's gravely mistaken, and I'm sure my colleagues share that. But just factually, as soon as the tax vote was finished, we went right into the Charlie Rangel debate, and sadly, that was getting a lot of our attention.
Does it mean the White House reaction, which is to say, okay, nice job, Barney, Frank, and you guys, but we are in negotiations to compromise on this with Republicans, does it mean that the vote you cast today was a symbolic vote, and all we've ended up with is putting you on record and other Democrats on record as voting for a tax increase on the top tax bracket, which in the end apparently will not occur if the White House reaches a compromise with Republicans?
Well, I am glad to be on record as doing that and showing that I'm serious about trying to reduce the deficit. But no, it's not yet at that point. I am disappointed. What the White House should have said was, look, as we go into these negotiations, and we all understand that, Steny Hoyer said on the floor, we know this isn't going to be the final package, but what they should have said is, see what strength we have. And I hope that reaction is not going to be their negotiating strategy. I'm still glad that we did it. Look, it's important in a democracy for people to know what the issues are and what divides the parties. And as I said, I think this so undercuts their argument against unemployment compensation and their pretense that they care a lot about the deficit. They put deficit reduction behind helping wealthy people and, frankly, also wasting money in the military and in some of these efforts. But, yeah, it is up to the White House. Now, I hope that by tomorrow they'll be saying, look, we go into what we saw ourselves as doing was strengthening their hand in the negotiation. And it's not too late for them to accept that support.
And this kind of bill does come out of the House often, where the House version of something is stronger from a party's perspective than the Senate's version, and it usually is applauded as you've said, as strengthening the hand of the Senate and the president. Given that there's obviously going to be some kind of movement, might it be on this threshold of $250,000, which was established as the top bracket back in 1993 in President Clinton's bill, which in real dollar terms, going backwards, that's $165,000 now.
There's room for compromise, in somewhere between $250,000 and nothing. And yeah, many of us could be supportive of that. That 250 is not a magic number, and if it went to 300, 350, you would still get significant revenues to offset that deficit. So that's what we were hoping that there's due to. But can I also note, the people said, well, we have to have bipartisanship. I think, unfortunately, the capture of the Republican Party by the Tea Party extremists has made that very difficult because they punish people who try to cooperate. But, people who are into this, well, let's all be bipartisan. Look at the difference between John Boehner's, as I said, sort of third-grade swears, chicken crap, or President Obama leaning over backwards. And it just reinforces my view. The president needs to understand you can't have unilateral bipartisanship. By definition, it's bi. You can't be unilateral. You can't have him being always accommodating and the Republicans engaging in schoolyard rhetoric.
Quickly, before you go, Congressman, the prospects for the DREAM Act and Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the lame duck session.
We have the votes for the DREAM Act now, but if we don't get those both done now, they're not going to pass. Don't Ask, Don't Tell is particularly outrageous. There is a majority in the House that's voted to repeal it. A majority in the Senate has voted to repeal it. The president says it doesn't work. Top Pentagon officials want it repealed. And a survey in the field shows that there's no great opposition among most of the military. I will say this. I hope that we can break that filibuster, but it's fear of Tea Party that is keeping some of the supposedly moderate Republicans from joining us. And so if Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal can't happen, I hope it still can. And Harry Reid, to his credit, is trying hard. Speaker Pelosi has said we won't accept a defense bill that doesn't have that repeal. But I would say to the president this. I've defended the president's saying he has a duty to defend the constitutionality of laws, even if he doesn't like them. But if the House has voted by majority to repeal it, the president thinks it should be repealed, the Senate majority is for repealing. If the only thing that saves it is this abuse of filibuster, then I think any claim that he has to defend it in court disappears. It has no more any moral force, and he ought then, if he can't get this done, and I hope Harry Reid can get it done as he's trying to do, then let the people who filibustered try to defend it in court.
Congressman Barney Frank, Democrat of Massachusetts, who represents the wisest top tax bracket payers in the country. Thank you very much for your time, Congressman Frank.
Thank you, Lawrence.